Hello everyone, Missy here today, and we will be comparing and ordering negative numbers. So on our agenda today, we have materials, joke of the day, and objectives. So I'm going to start with the objectives. So our objective is I can write, order, and explain negative numbers. So by the end of the lesson today, with the material that we learn, we'll be able to do all of that that is written. And then on our materials, I have paper and pencil. So paper and pencil are always going to be the best ways for you guys to do math. But if you had anything to write with and write on, that works as well. And if you wanted to follow along on an electronic device, anything works as long as we get participation. And while you guys get those materials, I do have a joke for you guys. So why is the obtuse triangle always upset? So if you guys could pause for 2 minutes to get those materials or to just think of the joke, and then we will come back. All right, so I hope everyone has their materials now. And the joke of the day, why is the obtuse triangle always upset? And it is always upset because it will never be right. And then we know that the obtuse angle is larger than a right angled triangle. So that was a little bit fun to get our brains into thinking about math. So let's get into it. So let's start thinking. Think of a number between -6 and 0, and then what number is greater than -5, and what number is smaller than 0. So if you guys could just stop here for about 3 minutes, and then I'll come back with that answer. Okay, so for the first one, think of a number between -6 and 0. So we know that on a number line, anything to the left of the 0 is going to be negative, and anything to the right of the 0 is positive. So a number between -6 and 0 could have been -5, -4, -3, -2, or -1. So if you guys always refer back to that number line, anything on the left-hand side will be negative, and anything on the right-hand side will be positive. So for the second one, what number is greater than -5? So again, I will write this on a piece of paper for you guys so you guys can better understand. So again, on our on our number line, we have our negatives on one side and our positives on the other side of 0. So we just have to make sure that we know which way we're going. So let me do this. So again, on my number line, I always have arrows here because our number line is infinite and it goes on forever for however long you want it to be. So we want a number that's greater than -5. So we want the number for the negative to be anything closest to 0 or greater. So -5 is here, and then the answer could have been -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, or any positive number. So usually if you're on a number line, if you wanted a number larger than 5, it would be 6 and above. But for negative, if we want a greater number, we want it as close as possible or higher to 0. And then that's how we do greater numbers for negative. And then our last question, what number is smaller than 0? So then again, I have 0 on the number line here. Anything on this side will be negative. Anything on the right side will be positive. So continuing on, we have our first example here. So Miss C goes for a run every morning. Her home starts at -3 on the number line. Today, her sister wanted to join her, and they wanted to run 6 miles total. If Miss C is 1 mile past the halfway point and her sister is 1 mile behind the halfway point, show on the number line where they would be. Each number on the number line represents 1 mile. So it says for us here that Miss C's house starts on -3 and they want to go 6 miles. So from -3 to -2 it's 1 mile. From -2 to -1, it's 2 miles. From -1 to 0 is 3 miles, and so on. So I have the number line here for you from -3 to +3, because that's going to be a total of 6 miles. So I gave you a little bit of an explanation on that. I will have you guys pause here for 3 minutes, and then I'll come back for the answer. All right, I hope that was enough time for you guys. So moving on to the answer, we have Miss C and her sister on our number line shown below. I have them in 2 different colors. I like to use different colors just because it helps me remember, and I like to write the person's name on top of it or next to it to make sure that I know which one I'm representing. So again, we start at -3, and that's where home is. They're going on a 6-mile run. So if we do -3 to -2, that's 1 mile. -2 to -1, that's 2 miles. -1 to 0 is 3 miles. 0 to 1 is 4 miles. 1 to 2 is 5 miles, and 2 to 3 is 6 miles. So shown on the number line, each jump is going to be 1 mile on the tick marks. So it says that Miss C is 1 mile past the halfway point, and her sister is 1 mile behind the halfway point. So if I look, I know from -3 to 0, that's 3 miles. And I know from 0 to 3, that's also 3 miles, which gives us the total of 6 miles. So I know that 0 is going to be my halfway point, because from -3 to 0 is 3 miles, 0 to +3 is 3 miles. So those two together make 6 miles total. So if Miss C is 1 mile past the halfway point and her sister is 1 mile behind the halfway point, from that 0, Miss C is 1 ahead of the halfway point, and her sister is 1 behind the halfway point. So shown on the chart, her sister is placed at -1, and Miss C is placed at 1. So we know that Miss C's sister had only ran 2 miles, while Miss C had run 4 miles. So I know that because when I start at -3, sorry, and I go from -3 to -2, -2 to -1, which is where Miss C's sister is, that is 2 miles. And then from -1 to 0, that's 3 miles, and 0 to +1 is 4 miles, which is where Miss C is. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. If not, I have another example that will definitely make more sense, but it's just shown a little bit different. So we're going to be using sea level. So when using sea level for positive, and negative numbers, what would the 0 represent? And if it says someone is below sea level, does that mean the number will be positive or negative? If it says someone is above sea level, does that mean the number will be positive or negative? And then are vertical and horizontal number lines the same? So if you guys could stop here for about 4 minutes and then go over that in your head, write them down, talk to a partner about it to get those answers, and then we'll come back and I'll go over that. And this will be how we're starting to do negative numbers on a number line with sea level. All right, so I hope that was enough time for you guys. When I'm going to go over the answers, you guys can think about that, write it down, because it will be super important moving forward. So when using sea level for positive and negative numbers, what would the 0 represent? So in sea level, we have, if this was the sea, my pen is the sea, we have above sea level and below sea level. So that means our sea level in this representation would be 0. So sea level would represent 0 because that is flat, straight point that we want to be at. So then if someone is below sea level, does that mean the number will be positive or negative? So that's a little bit self-explanatory, but we will go over that again. So we have our sea level, which is 0. And if someone is below the sea, so I will get this. If someone's swimming below the sea, that means they're lower than our 0, which means they're lower than our sea level, which means if someone's below sea level, they will be negative. Sorry, the number will be negative, not that. And then if it says someone is above sea level, does that mean the number will be positive or negative? So again, if this is my sea level, someone was below sea level swimming. So if they were above sea level, like hiking or something, and they are above my sea level, which is above 0, that means the number will be positive. So below, anything below would be 0, anything above will be positive, just because we know our sea level is going to be 0. And then our vertical and horizontal number lines the same? Yes, they are. So that means our vertical number line, our 0 will be here, and then we'll have our positive on this side, and then our negative on this side, which is the same as our number line, with our positive going this way and our negative going this way. So continuing on our second example, we will be using what we had just learned in our previous slide for this one. So a scuba diver is 50 feet below sea level, and then a person is swimming at sea level, and then a family is watching the scuba diver and the person swimming at sea level from a mountain 30 feet above the sea. So I will have you guys just think about this, and if you don't get this the first try, that is completely fine. If you guys could stop here, actually not exactly here. So if you guys could write this down, just so you have that written for you on a piece of paper, because I'm actually going to pause it at the slide beforehand so you guys can remember. And then our number line for this is going to be vertical, because we have our C, below C, above C. It wouldn't work if our number line was horizontal, because our C doesn't only go on one half and not on the other half. That makes sense. So if you guys could stop here for about 4 minutes, just to get yourself thinking on what those answers could be, and I'll come back and explain that for you. So I'm going to stop at the slide prior to this. All right, so moving forward for our example, I have it color-coded here. Like I said, the first time when we had the number line horizontal, I usually like to write what it is next to it, but this was a little bit more difficult. There was a lot more words in this, so I color coordinated it. So a scuba diver is 50 feet below sea level. So again, we know our sea level is 0. So below 50 feet is going to be at negative 50. So I have it color-coded as pink, and then our scuba diver would be at negative 50, which is the below sea level. And then I have my person swimming at sea level, and then we know that sea level will be 0. So that person was blue, I color coordinated with blue, and they're at 0. And then the family is watching the scuba diver and the person swimming from a mountain 30 feet above the sea level. I have that in purple. So then above sea level is my positive numbers, and that is going to be at positive 30. So I hope that makes a little bit sense for you guys, and you guys can understand that below sea level will always be negative, above sea level will always be positive. So continuing on, I have this try it on your own. So I'm going to read you guys instructions, and then I'll have you stop, try it on your own, and see how it works out for you. So Jane is taking a hike on a mountain 70 feet above sea level. A family is sailing a boat at sea level, and 2 scuba divers are below sea level. One is 30 feet below, and the second diver is 10 feet below. So that one's a little bit more different from the first one we did, but you may want to use different dots for this one. Just get yourself thinking. So if you guys could stop here for about 5 minutes to think about that, and then we'll come back together and go over it. All right, so I hope that was enough time for you guys to do that one. So I'm gonna go over the answers with you. Again, I color coordinated it to make it a little bit easier for us so you didn't have to write everything down next to that number line to make it confusing for us. So Jane is taking a hike on a mountain 70 feet above sea level. So I made that one purple. So my corresponding dot on the number line will be 70, positive 70, because she is 70 feet above sea level. And again, we know above sea level means that the number is going to be positive. So a family is sailing a boat at sea level. And again, we know at sea level will be our 0. So I have the blue dot corresponding to that on 0. And then the last one says 2 scuba divers are below sea level. One is at 30 feet below and the second diver is at 10 feet below. So for this one, we need to do 2 dots for the same, I guess, color. That's what I did. You guys could have done it in a different color if you wanted to, but I like to keep it all the same. So I have 2 dots here with the pink corresponding color, but this one I did write the diver next to it so we know which one it was. So I have one is 30 feet below and the second is 10 feet below. So I have my dots here, and then we know below sea level is going to be negative. So I have my first diver at negative 30 because there are 30 feet below the sea level. And then I have my second diver at negative 10 because they are 10 feet below the sea level. So that's how we got those 2 dots. Make sure you read it thoroughly. And again, if it was something written like this, I would strongly encourage you guys to distinguish which dot is which. So I did the corresponding colors, but since this try your own did have 2 divers in one section of the question, which means I had to put 2 dots. I did put them both in the same color, but I did explain which diver was which dot. So if you had just left it on its own, we would know that you know which dot is, there's 2 dots, but we wouldn't know if you knew which dot was which. So you guys can create your own, and I'm allowing you guys to create your own if you wanted to do a version of the sea level where you can make your own. Someone can be sitting on the beach at sea level, and then someone could be, you know, in a submarine below sea level, or someone could be flying an airplane above sea level. So that could be what you wanted to make, or if you wanted to make one like the first example where the number line was horizontal, and then with the running starting at the -3, going 6 miles to the +3. If you guys want to do one like that, make sure you indicate where you're starting and then where you're ending so that you know which positive and negatives to use. So continuing on, I have 2 extra practice here for you guys. So the first one is going to be number balls. So this one's a little bit of a game. Well, I'll show you what it is. There's an ad. So this one, you start, click on the balls in ascending order of the number. So let's turn the sound off. Okay, sorry about that. So what we'll do here is we'll click on the dots in ascending order. So we want to click on them from the lowest number to the highest number. So our lowest number here is going to be 38, then a -38, then I have -20, and then I have +5. So basically from the lowest number to the highest number for this one. And then for our next one, we have dog integers. And this one, super fun, very animated. And then let's just start with beginner, normal. So you will it shows you choose the correct answer. So -3 minus 0 gives me -3. And then you'll just answer these questions as they ask you. Those are going to be a little bit of extra practice that are fun games for you guys, but there's also videos online on Khan Academy and Brain Pop. If you guys want to do like more learning on this, Khan Academy is a kind of videos more of like the way someone teaches you, like a teacher teaching you, and then Brain Pop is going to be a little bit more of animated videos. And those two are extremely helpful. I love to use them if I'm a little bit confused on something while teaching. I do go back and rewatch. So I love those. And then closing up for what we have today, going over our objective was I can write, order, and explain negative numbers. So we did put them in order on the number line. We explain them using the C levels, and then we use the number line for like the running example, and then we wrote them out when we were writing the number line. I already had my number line written out for you guys, but if you that was when you guys were writing your own number line for the examples and the creator. So thank you so much for watching this video.